Good morning, everybody. I am really happy to be here today with author Ella Shae. Ella put out her new book, From Broken to Beautifully Broken, last week, and we are hopping on to go live here today to talk about a few things and just see how her first week has been. So, Ella, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. So, just to do a quick recap of how the book is doing. So your book, From Broken to Beautifully Broken, came out last Tuesday. And so far, I mean, it is #1 on Amazon in the US for, new releases in biography referencing collections. And it is also a bestseller in, new releases for journaling, new releases for inner child. It's a bestseller on the Kindle store. So tell our audience, how do you feel about all of this? How has this been?
It's a little surreal, becoming a published author in the first place is like surreal. And then when you see your numbers, hitting the top of the charts, it's almost something that you really could have never imagined. I'm kind of waiting for like the other shoe to drop and like wake up and be like, this didn't really happen, but it's happening and it's very exciting. It means my message is getting out there. It means, people are relating to the book, which is really all I wanted.
Well, congratulations. I am so excited for you. So
thank you.
Ella, can you tell us a little bit about the title? What does From Broken to Beautifully Broken mean to you?
So I think that a lot of us go through life thinking that we're broken in a sense from things that have happened to us in our past. And we kind of carry that with us, either as an excuse or a reason to hold us back from other things. And I think that there can be a beauty found in your brokenness. I think that if you look at your past through a different perspective, and if you, look at it with some compassion, you can sort of pull out a positive experience from whatever has happened in your past, or at least learn something from it. And there's something beautiful about the fact that you can walk around knowing that you went through those things and you turned it around, that you are not necessarily a victim of your past, but controlling your future.
I love that. So it's like finding your message from what you previously believed was your mess, right?
Exactly.
Amazing. So I know in previous conversations and, leading up to the book release, we talked a lot about how you really shed a light on mental health struggles and, what is needed for that support. But in reading your book, I also know you cover a lot of other different, themes and topics. Could you just share a little bit about what else, you have going on in the book? What other topics, what other themes you're covering? How else this book can help people?
Yeah, absolutely. So while I really do want to promote, mental health awareness and, getting people to use their voices, my book isn't just about that. It's made so that anybody can relate to it. So it talks about topics that don't necessarily have to do with mental health struggles. It talks about parenting. It talks about going through a divorce. It talks about starting all over again. It talks about grief and loss. And all of those things, everybody goes through them at one point or another in their life, whether or not they struggle with their mental health or not. For example, the parenting chapter talks about no one ever tells you that it's a roller coaster of emotions from the moment you have the baby till forever. And I talk about those roller coaster of emotions, but I also talk about how a lot of the times the mother or parent puts themselves on the back burner and the children then become the priority. And everything is about them. You become the Uber driver. You're the last one to take the shower. You're the last one to eat your meal. You put yourself last. And I think the message in that chapter is making sure that you create time to put yourself first, making sure that you create time to have that own self-care, because that really will make you a better person. It will make you a better parent, make you a better spouse. So there's certain things in the book that are not just about, someone with mental health struggles their entire life. It could just be a moment in time that you're feeling overwhelmed. And my book sort of gives you a little bit of guidance, or at least, you can know somebody else is going through the same thing.
Yeah, that's so true. And 100%. It's like, I was trying to explain to my kids the other day why mommy cried after they were born. Right? I have 8-year-old twins. They're like, oh, were you sad? And I was like, no. It's really hard to explain all of those emotions. So I completely get kind of what you're touching on there. Now, when it comes to self-care, I know there's the cliche, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it gets said so much that people have kind of started to block it out. But could you just, go a little bit into from your experience? Because I know that this is a very prominent theme in your book, but the importance of self-care and why we need to not ignore those cliche sayings and how they impact your whole life.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, again, there's another stigma with self-care, especially with parents. So a lot of people confuse self-care with being selfish, and there's a difference. I think that you need to create time to do the things that you enjoy. During COVID, when we were in isolation, I sort of changed my entire direction. So instead of, getting dressed in the morning and going out with the kids, I decided, what's the point? Like, there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. So slowly things stopped for me. I stopped getting out of my pajamas. I stopped going places. I stopped getting fresh air. And all of those things are what contributed to the spiraling of my eating disorder. So I think that self-care is extremely important because it will put you in your emotional state, right? So if you haven't had any joy in anything, if you haven't felt good about yourself in any way, there's not going to be any positive that comes out of that. And I think taking care of your children, sure, that's a joy. People will say, well, you should have joy in raising your child. Of course, I have joy in raising my child, but I also need that time to myself. I need time with my husband. I need time with my friends. And, it's not always possible to have all of those things, but I think it's important to carve out a small portion of time for yourself to do those things so that you can be your best self. Otherwise, you're going to fall apart. There's no way to live a life without self-care.
I agree 100%. And you touched on something, really important that I want you to elaborate on. And that's, the judgments and labels that come from outside, from so many people, that probably mean well. But, and it ranges from everything from motherhood, you should find joy in raising your children. You shouldn't complain, to eating disorders, right? Well, why can't you just see how thin you are? Why can't you, you need to eat something. Why don't you just eat? Could you touch a bit on the dangers of these judgment statements of, this idea that sometimes when people are trying to help, they're actually hurting?
Yeah, I think there are so many sayings that people just sort of say as like a reaction. And they're not actually even thinking about the words that are coming out of their mouth. Like, sometimes you'll see a woman pass by and they'll say, oh, she really let herself go. They don't understand like the implications of what that actually means. Like, do you understand what those words mean, or are you just using them because it's a saying that you've heard in the past and you have nothing better to say? And I think sometimes society just throws out these sayings that we've had for so long that they don't actually realize what those words mean to somebody. Maybe she let herself go from, the beauty standards in society. Maybe she doesn't want to wear makeup anymore. Maybe she wants to wear comfortable clothes. Maybe she doesn't want to worry about her weight and she wants to eat whatever she wants, whenever she wants. That is her living a life of freedom. not letting herself go, as other people may have said, when they see her passing by. So I think that there's a lot of judgments. Like I said, a mother taking time for herself is sometimes considered selfish by others. Instead of saying like, good for her that she's finding the time to take care of herself as well. And it took me hitting rock bottom for people to really understand that that was important for me, that my job wasn't just to raise my children and take care of the house. And, I needed time to myself too. And rightfully so. I should be allowed that time without guilt. And I think that's a huge part of it, is without guilt. And society tends to put a lot of guilt on those things.
I agree. To just dive a bit further into the power of words and that sort of thing. I know in the first few chapters you talk about, remembering the exact phrase that, started to break down your self-belief and your self-worth. And I myself can remember the exact phrase that triggered my eating disorder, exactly what was said, where I was, who it was said by. And as a parent, and as a parent of a young girl, how can we help our children through those moments? Or what can we do to help them help themselves?
I think that in a world where 90% of what we do, we cannot control, I think we only have control of about 10% of what happens in our life. And I think it's important to embrace that 10%. So what we can control is our reaction to what others are saying. So, we need to teach our children to be strong. We need to teach our children self-care, self-love. We need to teach our children that you don't always have to stand up for yourself. Let people talk. You don't always have to defend yourself to somebody who's insignificant. You don't have to put your energy into something like that. Put your energy into something that makes you a better person, not prove your worth to somebody else. I want my daughter to know that she doesn't need a Prince Charming, like I was raised in the 80s and 90s where every movie was, Prince Charming comes to the rescue. And that's when, the woman has a fulfilled life. So I want my daughter to know that, she creates her life and she can find somebody who would love to join that vision with her and add to that vision, not take away from it or not make her sacrifice the things that she wants in life. So I can only guide her and give her the tools that she needs when she's in those situations where you don't have control what other people are going to say. When I was a little girl, my parents had no control of what people were saying to me at school. The only thing they could do is build my confidence. And that's what I'm going to do for my kids, at least make sure that they know from me, from my husband, from my family, that they have value and worth. And anyone who tries to take that away from them is not worth their time.
That's solid insight, and 100% agree. And so, Ella, now your ebook is available on Amazon and the paperback comes out next week. If our audience is looking to connect with you in any other way or learn more about you, like where can they find you?
On my website, ellashae.com, I have a list of events that I will be at, some book signings. I'm going to be at some book festivals, some magazine articles that are going to be coming out. Everything is listed on my website. So any information you want to find out about me can be found there. I'm also on Instagram, Ella Shae _author. So you can find me there. And mostly if you want to see where I am going to be in person, you can check it out on my website.
Amazing. Well, Ella, congratulations. I'm so stinking happy for you. And thank you for joining us this morning. It's really been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for having me. It was good seeing you again.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.